I'm Sarah Myerscough, and this is the Insurance Brokers Podcast, where we're talking to the personalities and the businesses that sit behind our industry. If you like what you hear, please hit subscribe on your chosen podcast streaming platform. Good morning, Merlin. Thank you very much for joining me today on the Insurance Brokers Podcast. It's quite an exciting topic we're talking about, not least because we love doing events and you guys have got an incredible event coming up. But before we talk about it, do you just want to give a bit of an overview about who you are and tell me a little bit about Insurtech Connect?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am the head of content at ITC DIA Europe. Essentially, my role is to look after all of the digital content that we do. So that's articles, webinars, and interviews and things like that. Also sitting on the team for the production side of things. So that's booking the speakers, writing the agenda for the event. And I work together with the DIA team very closely on that. Essentially, a little bit about ITC DIA. So they were previously completely separate companies. ITC, very big in the US, has their flagship insurance event in the world, which last year had 9,500 people there in Vegas, and also very big in Singapore in the Asian market as well. And DIA was the market leader in Europe, and last year for a new European launch, the two merged to bring the best of the both worlds together. So ITC being a very American punchy, bright lights, stardom kind of show, and DIA having that European festival feel. Two very different elements that we're bringing together in Barcelona in June. So it'll be 27th to the 29th of June at the Fira Gran Via in Barcelona.
And it's set to be an absolutely incredible event. Very, very exciting. So Insurtech Connect is, as you said, a huge footprint in Asia, in America, building hugely in Europe. Tell me about the event. Why would somebody from the insurance industry need to be at that event?
Well, I think one of the key things right now is to capitalize on a lot of the digitization projects that have happened over the past few years. Obviously, we've probably heard it enough times now that all of that digitization accelerated over COVID. And I think one of the big things that we are incredibly keen to make sure is on the agenda is just how many enablers there are out there who can help the insurance industry really drive innovation. Because that's the whole goal of everything that we do, whether it's an event, whether it's a webinar, is to push the industry forward. I think the specific thing about ITC DIA is almost what I mentioned, is the bringing together of those two worlds. On the one hand, you have those bright lights with everyone moving around and meeting a lot of different people, but also that festival feel, which is where people can actually sit down and relax and have those deeper, meaningful connections and build those connections that are going to help everyone achieve their business goals. If you're an insurance provider, a carrier rather, looking to accelerate your innovation, looking to automate your underwriting processes, improve your claims experience, we've got all of those people that can help you do that. Similarly, if you are looking to engage with those people from a tech provider side, or even from an MGA standpoint, looking to partner up with carriers who have the large customer base, we're also going to have a lot of those people in the room as well. I think it's reflected in our speaker list. We've got some of the biggest hitters around, and we also want to make sure that we have those industry adjacent speakers as well, so that you can learn from fintech or health tech, or even big pharma and the automotive industry as well. So everything that you're going to be learning there is very unique to the industry. We make a big point of differentiation, and so the people that you meet and the things that you learn, I don't think there's going to be a better place to go.
I think it sounds fabulous. I know Sam White's speaking, isn't she? And I interviewed her a couple of weeks ago, and I think she's a phenomenal human.
Absolutely, particularly interested about Sam coming to the show. It's going to be really exciting. It's always great to have those perspectives on the industry that really do push the needle. What I've noticed working in events in general over the past 4 years of my life, which I know is relatively nascent, but the thing that I have noticed is you sometimes can fall into the trap of just having the same conversations about the same things, and you really do need those innovators to sometimes say something that's perhaps controversial, say something that perhaps people don't necessarily want to hear. Not that Sam White's going to be angering any of our attendees, absolutely not. But it's always great to have those innovative opinions so that we can really drive things forward.
I think innovative is a fabulous word to sum up what I know about Sam. So really exciting for that. Talk to me about the big topics. So you've mentioned, I mean, we've talked previously. You've got a big piece and lots of different stuff around digitization, a big move on embedded insurance, which I've had a few conversations about, which, another rapidly growing area. There's a huge world of current economic players involved in how the insurance industry is moving forward. Talk to me about the big topics, who will be talking about them, what we can learn.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the first thing to talk about is the overall digitization agenda. Now, most of the time there are, of course, lots of different digitization topics that you're going to find at every conference, doesn't matter what industry you're in. I think something that we are very keen to show everyone is that obviously the big multinationals, the ones that Joe Blogs on the street will probably have heard of. So the Axes, the Avivas, they are obviously continuing to digitize. However, and we are covering that, of course. The next step, though, for digitization, and this is for a lot of our friends in the sort of Insurtech founder world, especially on the enabler side, is that next generation of digitization, which is going to come from those more mid-size or those more domestic carriers who are very big in, let's say, Norway or Sweden or Denmark, Germany, though, Switzerland, those players who still play an incredibly important role within the insurance industry, within their own domestic markets, but haven't necessarily had a couple of factors go into it. Haven't necessarily had the need to digitize as quickly. They haven't had necessarily the right capital behind them, but now the time is coming through where everything's coming together. And in order to essentially keep their market share, what they do have, which, as I say, is a very important part of the equation, they're really going to have to take the next step and bring themselves into kind of I mean, I'd say a modern world, but they're really going to have to accelerate their own digitization processes. So that's the first thing that I'd say. And the next part would be, I would say, the kind of the commercial element. I'd say there's two sides to this in my mind. So there's obviously the commercial insurance side. So looking at one like Amelie Brightbird from Lloyd's, for example, is going to be doing a fireside chat and talking about the future of commercial insurance. What does that actually look like? How do we enable that side of things? This isn't even at the event, but I'm also doing an interview with AXA XL, their global COO, who they have just essentially created a self-service commercial P&C platform, which has never been done before. So everyone's stepping into that commercial world and thinking about that commercial experience. And then sticking with the B2B element, what we're seeing is a lot of insurtechs going from B2C to B2B. And I think there's an interesting effect that that's going to have on the industry as a whole. The primary result of that, my assumption is, and I'm hoping I don't have egg on my face in 6 to 12 months' time, is that we're going to see fewer of the lemonades and the hippos, and we're going to be seeing more of the as I say, those B2B players become the next big sexy insurtech. I think 3 years ago, I mean, if we think just before all those insurtech IPOs that have happened over the past couple of years, we were really, really excited about all of those players, and they still play a key role, of course. But I think the next big insurtech players are going to be those tech providers. So that kind of commercial B2B element, I think, is going to be really crucial. Of course, embedded. Everyone's talking about embedded. It's impossible to talk. It's impossible not to talk about it these days. And I do apologize to all of your broker friends who are currently listening to it. But there is a massive opportunity there for insurers to essentially almost disappear. And it's kind of even more fulfilling of that old adage about insurance, which is it's working when you don't have to think about it. And I think that embedded piece is going to be absolutely crucial, not just sort of completely not automating that product, but sort of API-ifying that kind of distribution line, but also looking at how brokers are going to be enabled further by digitization as well. Because it's my understanding, and please do correct me if I'm wrong, that on the broker side of things, and for good reason, I'd say, there's been maybe a little bit more hesitancy to adopt the digital tooling. And I mean, as someone who's occasionally has had the odd thought about whether Chat GPT is going to steal his job, I do completely understand that. Because it essentially writes articles and interview questions at the drop of a hat. But I think that there's just a side note on that. There's no real reason to be truly scared. That you've got to sort of embrace that change. There's actually a quote that I read from Andrew Horton when he was CEO of Beazley and is now the group CEO of QBE, I believe. Read an article that he wrote where he was interviewed and said essentially, change is inevitable, and the truly successful people are going to be the ones that embrace change. So I think hopefully we're going to see more adoption of digitization at the sort of the broker side of things. And yeah, obviously the economic side of it all is stressful for everyone. Again, doesn't matter what industry you're in. The particular parts of insurance that are probably worried. I mean, on the traditional carrier side of things, prices for tech are going to go up. People are going to be asking for salary raises. Doesn't matter what the chairman of the Bank of England says. A lot of people are struggling, so there are salaries that are going to have to go up. And insurance is still going to have to try and attract the best talent, and as a result of that, they're probably going to have to whip out a few, maybe the odd zero or two onto the odd paycheck. On the insurtech side of things, resilience is going to be really important. So I mean, something that I've said before is, if you look at where the investment capital is going to go, so either from venture capital or the funds that insurers have set up, or even the angel investors as well. I think what we're going to see, and I think we already are seeing it, is rather than loads of money going into loads of different insurtechs, which we've seen year on year up until last year, essentially, we're going to see bigger raises in fewer insurtechs. Overall capital, I think, is going to sort of dwindle, and it's a pendulum. It'll swing back and forth over ad infinitum. But I think we'll see fewer unicorns pop up. It's going to be less regular. But when the investors do see an opportunity that they truly believe in, they're actually going to back them further, rather than kind of spread those funds across multiple insurtechs. It's my sort of 2 cents on the sort of state of affairs.
One of the things that I'm getting from you, which I think is really exciting, is this event is going to be about the future. So this is not where we are. This is not looking at the past. This is absolutely, where is our industry going to be over the next 5 years? What changes do you need to make to be in the running? And you are bringing together a number of some of the key global innovators in the tech space, the insurance space, the economy space, to discuss this, to get kind of ideas flowing and people talking. Is that a fair synopsis?
I certainly hope so. I'm glad that you sort of put the words in my mouth rather than me having to shamelessly self promote the event. But yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the great things about going through kind of being part of this merger between ITC and DIA is, the ITC has this incredible global brand, and DIA has this incredible European brand, and the relationships that have been built as a result of those two individual entities, kind of just going about their business and building their companies, has just been incredible to piggyback off. I mean, honestly, I don't really feel as though I have to do too much work sometimes, because there's such there's such an incredible kind of sort of database for me to for me to work with. And there's, especially on the DIA side of things, there are, the relationships are there that are there are so close. No, it's not the same sort of scale as ITC, but the people who go to these DIA events, whether it was, in Amsterdam or Munich last year, for example, they have dinner together, they play football together. There are board members who play football with our co-founders, for example, of DIA. So as a result of those relationships, as a result of all the hard graft that's gone into it, that I wasn't really a part of. In fact, I was at the time I was at Insurtech Insights, trying to stop it from happening. But as a result of all that hard work that's gone in, there's been there's just been a fantastic lineup of speakers, and all are incredibly excited to, as I say, come to Barcelona and really drive things forward. And I mean, the key word obviously is innovation, but what we want to make sure we're doing is taking innovation, which is a very broad, often waffly term, and actually put that into action. It's innovation, it's the thought leadership piece, of course, but it's actually, how do you get better? How do you how do you actually improve your customer experience for, brokers or claims adjusters, whoever it is.
So paint a picture of the event, right? I arrive on the morning. What do I see? Who's going to be there? What kind of exhibits are there? What kind of, stages are there? Paint a picture.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so the first thing I'll say is we'll have three stages there, and there'll be all of them are pretty much the same size. So we don't want to do too much hierarchy, because we think that everyone who's come to our event is equally important. The differences that you'll see. So the first thing is DIA's world-renowned show and tell stage. So that is essentially 8-minute kind of product demos or pitches, essentially from startups. They're not allowed to use a PowerPoint. They are, it's absolutely just fundamentally wrong. But there's quite a lot of preparation that goes into it. There's some fantastic help that the Digital Insurance Agenda team do in preparing people for those speeches, because 8 minutes, no PowerPoint is, I mean, I would find that pretty daunting, and I love the sound of my own voice. Then so that's one thing that you'll absolutely see. That obviously we'll have incredible keynotes. The lineup is pretty amazing. One thing that actually we're doing slightly differently is creating talk shows rather than just creating panels. So I mean, the talk show, it's exactly what it says on the tin. It's essentially going to be the moderator having a kind of in-depth discussion, probably about 10 minutes each, on average, with each person, and creating this sort of Jonathan Ross, Graham Norton style engagement, which we're really excited about. I've not seen it done before in the event space. Very much covering my own tracks in case loads and loads of people are doing it, and I'm I'm just too ignorant to know
I
about
think
it.
it's a really exciting piece, and obviously we're talking to you guys about that talk show side of it. I haven't seen it done before. Again, I don't search the insurance space for it, so I may have missed it, but I think it's a fabulous idea. A lot of fun, a lot of personality, a lot of the humanization, the connection piece that you were talking about earlier.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing that I've always adored about the DIA events is you walk in and you just immediately feel incredibly relaxed. It's there are quite a lot of conferences, and I'm not sort of denigrating any other conference, but you kind of you often walk in, you go, all right, this is quite a lot. There's a lot of stuff going on, and of course there is loads of stuff going on at a DIA event, or DIA events previously. But you do get this sense of relaxation. The way that they brand thing, their production values are just incredible. I mean, even if you look online at the recordings that have happened from previous DIA events, the production value on those are amazing. I mean, I was in enough plays when I was at school to know that recording stuff that's done on stage does not look fantastic, and yet the guys at DIA managed to do it incredibly well. So that's another thing, is just the feel of the event. It's not just this kind of hotel event where you kind of go in and sort of potter about. You are going to feel like you're in a festival, and meanwhile you're at this. It's essentially a festival of insurance and insurtech, and that's what we're keen to do. We're hoping that you just sort of learn a lot of stuff along the way, and also meet a lot of people who are either going to give you a lot of money or who you're happy to give you a lot of money to as well.
And it's in Barcelona, so a win-win on all levels.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, it's great for me because I get a free plane ticket to Barcelona, and we do a lot of site visits, so we're there quite regularly as well. But yeah, absolutely, the location being in Barcelona, we wanted to try and, I wouldn't say Barcelona is necessarily off the beaten track, but we just wanted to try and sort of move away slightly from that, from the locations where every event around the world is. So yeah, Barcelona fits that bill perfectly, and of course there's a lot happening in the city, but I mean, as a Londoner, I'd probably say not as much as here, but certainly I would say there's quite a lot of stuff happening, so you can kind of turn it into maybe a bit of a long week and get away as well. But obviously, it just means that there's loads of ways that we can kind of better service everyone, taking people down to the beach, it might be, or just enjoying that June Barcelona weather, which again, as a Brit, I'm if anything nervous about. So I'll be bringing the factor 50, and would highly recommend that if any of your listeners are planning on joining, that they do the same.
Factor 50 and a hat.
Yeah, long shirts as well.
I'm all about that tanning. So tell me, how can I book? If I'm listening to this podcast and I want to come, how do I book?
Right, so very simply, you can go to the registration page on our website, and that's just one way of going to do it. Right now, tickets are 1295. Also, you can get in touch with us directly if there are maybe if there's a big group from your organization who wants to come. We can also facilitate that. I mean, hopefully there'll be some sort of link to my LinkedIn profile or something like that, or I'll just put my work phone number and email in the chat or something. So also feel free to reach out to me, and I can put you in touch with the right people. We do also have a select number of VIP tickets as well that I'm in charge of. So if you feel like chancing your arm, feel free to reach out to me directly, and if I'm feeling in a particularly generous mood, that might happen as well.
That's wonderful. So you're happy that I make sure your contact details, your LinkedIn profile, and the registration link are all in the show notes for anybody that wants to take you up on that?
I'd go further than that, Sarah. I'm insisting on it.
Done. Absolutely. If you get loads of spam, do not blame me.
It'll just be going to my email anyway.
Fabulous. Well, I'm really excited about the event. I think it's going to be phenomenal. I think the work you guys have put in is incredible. And I've learned a lot from you and from your team in the sort of previous weeks when we've been chatting. So really, really grateful for your time today. Please get in touch if you're listening. Merlin wants to give you VIP tickets. I just heard him say so. And yeah, thank you very much for your time.
Pleasure's all mine, Sarah. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Insurance Brokers podcast. We'd love to hear from you, and don't forget to subscribe on your chosen podcast streaming platform and check us out on YouTube.